Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. It is 2024, people. It is 2024. We made it. We made it through another year. You guys should be excited. You got a lot accomplished. 2023 was an amazing year. I'm excited for 2024. With me today is just myself. Eric and I have been planning. We have been strategizing on what to bring to the Dental Wealth Podcast in 2024 to bring kind of some new life to it. Ultimately speaking, we're always looking at ways to get better, ways to improve this podcast. So always send stuff in, communicate with us, send us text messages, send us emails, send us messages on social media, whatever you guys want to hear. We want to make sure we put it into this podcast. But for now, what we did was we gave you Leadership Roundtable version 1. So this was part 1, not version 1. It was actually part 1 that you guys got last podcast. So what we're going to do is we're going to release part 2 now. So I want you guys to do is take notes, go back and look at the Leadership Roundtable Part 1 podcast and write down all the things that you thought were great points, things that you wanted to get accomplished in 2024, and reassess those as you listen to this podcast. What I want you to do is just pull a few nuggets. I mean, ultimately speaking, that's all you need to do. Sometimes you try to bite too much out of the elephant instead of just taking a bite at a time. Just take a bite at a time. So let's go ahead and roll the clip.
I love this question. It's a new emerging leader. How do you gain respect of the team if you're a new leader?
Brian.
Go.
No, I said it first.
Go ahead, Eric.
You get to put it back on Brian if you want to.
So go ahead and pick up, whoever wrote this question, go pick up John Maxwell's 5 Levels of Leadership, which I think would be a phenomenal book at this point. Absolutely will explain to you the levels you're moving up through and give you a step-by-step guide. But as a leader, what you need to understand is what we've been talking about, which is consistency. Show consistency every single day. Care about your people. Be self-aware. Be empathetic, right? Show up the right way. I'm going to tell you right now, if you'll show consistency in behavior, follow the core values of the organization. Teach the core values of the organization. You guys hear me say the word core value all the time, and sometimes I get made fun of it for it. But I'm telling you, it's where so many people miss. Mm-hmm. But when you start to show consistency with that every single day, you will earn people's respect. When you listen to them, when you're self-aware, when you're empathetic, when you follow the guiding principles, when you're sharing the vision. Now, take the owner's vision. If you're not the owner of the organization, you better learn the vision of the organization as a new leader so that you can then share that vision with other people and so that you can help them and ultimately guide them, motivate them, help them on their career, and then care about them. I truly do believe that your job as a leader is to help other people get what they want. And I'm not just talking about ultimately the top of the organization. You should be interested in their career. If I'm ultimately in charge of one person, 5 people, I should ultimately want to help them in their career. I should help them grow. Remember, here's what whoever wrote this question, do not turn it, remember everyone needs leadership and management. So don't get them confused. So you'll say, I'm in a leadership role, so I got to make sure the KPIs are followed. Well, that's management. Understand that. Well, I got to make sure we're hitting this or hitting that. Well, that's management. It's fine. You probably do need to manage them too, by the way. But that's not leadership. Leadership is actually finding out what those people desire, finding about the goals, sharing the why, getting them excited about coming to work. Be interested in their career, in their development, in their growth, giving them a passion. I'm telling you, watch what happens. When your followers realize that you will do anything for them, when they realize that you'll wake up early, you'll stay late, you'll go to you battle for them, you'll fight for them, you'll do anything for them, you will be surprised what they will do for you. So don't confuse management and leadership. Make sure you understand that those people under your guide, ultimately your leadership, those people under you, your job is to serve them, not to manage them, which you might be doing, but to lead them, to help them grow, to help their careers become better, to fight for them, to share core values, to share vision. Do that. Watch what happens to those people under you. Watch what happens. They will do absolutely anything for you.
That's great. I think I would say the first thing out of the gate is actually build a relationship with the people on your team.
Yeah.
Like, spend some real time with them. And here's a little hack. Like, if you're brand new, let's say you're brand new to the organization and you're the top person and you need to know everybody on this team. Do a little survey, make a list of about 10 questions that, what's their favorite candy? What's their favorite thing to do? What, all the hobbies, what they're into. And then all of a sudden you're making a list of what they actually like, and then go buy that stuff for them, or go give them a day out to that event that they love to go to. Start adding value to them in small, special ways to kind of show that you're actually interested in who they are. It's really, really important. And then this is kind of cheesy, but it's actually pretty good. Have your team take the 5 love languages free test online, because then you'll begin to realize how they receive and experience likability and love. And when you know that there are words of affirmation, then for that person, then it's just like, you're amazing, you did great today, and that words of affirmation fills their cup. If they like gifts, then they expect you to give a $5 gift card from Starbucks, and I'm telling you, that $5 gift card from Starbucks, just given from the leader to you, will absolutely make their day. And
Hey,
when
guys,
you start
listen,
making people's days like that.
Keep going.
Go ahead.
No, keep going. By the way, if physical touch is their number 1, go to number 2. Go ahead, keep going. I just want to throw that out. Right, just throwing that out. Don't want you walking off with that advice.
If it is physical touch, a really cool appropriate high five. There's this thing called the side hug, right? You can do some things to do physical touch.
Hey,
That's right.
one thing I want to say about what Brian was talking about, and this is going back to what I was talking about earlier. Now, here's your challenge. Upper limit problems, barrier, fear of outshining others. So watch what happens. All of a sudden, Brian says, hey, you're in a leadership role. I'm going to go take care of these people. I'm in charge of the hygiene team, so I'm going to go ahead and do all these things. Watch what you do to yourself. You'll immediately start going, what are the other leaders doing?
Yep.
I mean, are they doing that? Well, I don't want to make anyone look bad. I don't want to look like,
So good.
I don't want to make anyone feel bad of me because the other leaders aren't doing that. Hey, what's acceptable? What do we do here? Who cares? But what will happen is there's an upper limit problem. You will push yourself down because you'll go, well, remember I said earlier, people ultimately want team cohesion. So they're like, well, I don't want anyone to get upset at me. That's why you got to share successes. And this is what happens in your organization. This is exactly it. Because you'll want to do those things and you'll get excited. And then you start doing them and the other leaders will start pushing you down. You think it's funny because you think it's going to come from the bottom. It's going to come from the other leaders who are like, look, that's not going to work. It's going to make us look bad. Stop doing it. They're going to start saying, the leadership will start saying things about you to hold you back. And that's the crazy part, is you think it's actually going to come from below. It's going to come from above. And you look at the other leaders, you're like, I'm just trying to be awesome here.
Right.
And all of a sudden you start getting beat down by other leaders in the organization because you ultimately were outshining them. And even your fear of that, especially as a new leader, will make you question whether you should just do the status quo or whether you should go above and beyond. Because look, if I had to do that, ultimately I might alienate myself. I might look better than others. People might not want to be my friend anymore. And ultimately speaking, now all of a sudden I question my role here and forget it. I'll just do what everybody else does. Leadership is difficult. So what Brian says is correct. But I'm going to tell you, as soon as you start doing it, you're going to worry if you're going to outshine other people. And that fear of outshining will hold you back from doing what you should be doing.
That's such great insight.
And owner, listen, and senior leader, listen, when you have someone that is. Because if they take this advice and they're like, I'll go ahead and step up and be a leader and outshine. All right, don't screw the pooch on this one. Why can't y'all be more like Brian? Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Right? When you see leadership of an area of your organization really thriving, look at the traits of what's happening, reward appropriately, celebrate that individual, but not in a comparison game to create dissonance between them. But to instead to look for how that can influence what should change in the leadership across the board. Because when you take that approach, what you're doing is you're not leading to the lowest common denominator, you're leading to the highest common denominator. And when you lead to the highest common denominator, your organization can grow in leaps instead of just layers.
It's good. And it's not about comparison, because that's very, very
Ever.
dangerous. But it is about celebration. And you want to celebrate when someone goes the extra mile, because you want to raise an entire team of people that go the extra mile all the time. Be an extra mile person. Everybody will go 1 mile, but true leaders go the extra mile. And just determine in yourself that you're going to be an extra mile person every day, all day, the rest of your life. And then you don't have to worry about that kind of feedback. Be an extra mile person. But what gets celebrated gets repeated. So if you'll celebrate it, it will start to get repeated inside of your organization. So the more you celebrate the right things, the more the right things get repeated. The more you highlight the things that are problems and wrong, that's when it's going to continue to be a problem, and that cycle of dysfunction will continue. Highlight the things that matter, celebrate it big time, and it'll get repeated over and over again in your organization.
That's good.
All right, here, let's solve some relational problems inside the organization. How do you connect with someone that listens to respond instead of listening to hear and understand without getting frustrated? You know that type of person, right? Defensive?
Yep. Who listens to respond instead of listening.
Yeah, they're loading an answer and they're not listening to what's being said. They're just trying to fortify their own position. How do you handle that?
Rarely in that moment. You see what I'm saying? Like if it's going, unless this is something that is just repetition and the coaching conversations have happened. But first of all, when you spend time around essence of how team members and how leaders, you need to lead by example. You cannot hold a standard to your team that you don't exemplify, because otherwise there'll just be dissonance in trust. But when who we are in terms of our respect, who we are in terms of being present, but you need to take moments to coach your team just on the essence of who you are. And if hearing is important and not just, hey, I'm preloading and stuff, coaching conversations with an individual, part of leadership it is your responsibility to keep people between the lines. And if behavior is going on like this that is creating issues, even if it's between you and that team member, again, in the moment, it may not be, hey, stop doing that. It may not be that, but to be able to pull aside and say, hey, I want to talk through this. So I think it's coaching conversations in the fringe are very important, but to also be super self-aware that you are not exemplifying the behavior, because that is a poster child example of something that takes place in a lot of dental practices. A lot of dental practices. Technical mind of the dentist, and again, that doesn't automatically mean that everybody on the team is going to be technically minded. And in the traditional settings and the traditional trappings of dentistry, the dentist falls in, nobody in this room, because you guys are all awesome, but the traditional trappings of dentistry is that the dentist, being aware, feeling like they are the smartest person in the room, is the wrong position to take. Because at the end of the day, if you are the leader, it is your responsibility to serve your team to greatness and to not criticize. So make sure that you are giving the example of what it means to be an active listener and to allow people to express fully how they feel, and to know that it is okay to hold that standard to the people on your team as well. Just make sure you're exemplifying it first.
What you think?
I think that if someone's defensive naturally, you need to be aware that there's another problem going on there. That if someone naturally goes to defend themselves every single time you have a conversation with them, and this is kind of not 101, this is deeper, but if you're willing to walk into a deeper conversation as a leader, you need to understand that there is an insecurity inside of that person. Right. There's some insecurity inside that person that makes them want to defend themselves every time they're criticized. And so, or even, I shouldn't say criticized, because that's not really even the correct statement. It's actually anytime they're even given any advice sometimes, or even guidance, sometimes they're pushing back. But if you're willing to take the journey, you got to slow down and be willing to do this, to actually discover and ask the question. You'd have to ask them and be curious enough to know, listen, every time I have this conversation with you, you tend to get defensive. And can you tell me where that comes from? Are you willing to have that conversation with somebody? Are you really willing to have it? Because you might not be ready for what comes after, which could be tears, which could be difficult conversations, which could be a lot. But understand, when someone's defensive, there's an insecurity. And if you're willing to, you can open that conversation, because the wrong thing to do is just go, you're just defensive, you're always defensive. Okay, that's kind of that's not leadership, and that's not management. I'm not even sure what that is, okay? But if you're willing to have a deeper conversation, not in front of anybody else, okay, but having a conversation with somebody to find out where the root of that comes from, and have open and honest communication, I guarantee you can overcome that. I guarantee you can overcome it quickly, but you'd have to get that person. Now, the person has to be willing to be self-aware too, to be fair. And if they're not willing to be self-aware, then you got to question whether they fit in with the core values of the organization and whether they're coachable. But if you're willing as a leader to coach them and listen, understand defensiveness is nothing more than somebody else's, ultimately, insecurity. Something's going on with them, and you'd have to be willing to ask the question.
I think too sometimes, and it kind of goes along with all this, but it's like you got to explain the why behind the what of the conversation. There's times when I'll go to Shad or somebody else and I'll be like, do I have permission to say what's in my heart, even though I haven't thought through what's in my heart? Like, I don't have a clean way of articulating what's going on, but do I have permission to fumble my way through this conversation because I'm trying to get to something and I just need to know if it's just me? And if it's just me, I'm great, it's fine, but I just want to make sure, right? And so, like, it's just making sure that you're in a position of humility and you're posturing yourself and you're talking about why you're trying to have the conversation in the first place. That you're not trying to attack, you're not trying to demean, you don't do it in front of people, you do it in private. You sit down at a time when you're both in the proper tone, temperature, all that good stuff, and then you ask permission. Can I have permission to just say what I need to say and just let you try to hear me? And then if they don't, you're not responsible for their response, you're just responsible for saying it and being bold enough to do that. So I think it's important to kind of talk about the why behind the what sometimes.
And I love what you just said. And Brian does this, by the way. I've seen him do it with people. I think you might have even done it with me one time, Brian. Yep. I think what he just did was showed vulnerability. Hey, listen, I don't have, by the way, tone, temperature, all that, dead on. When someone's hot, not the time. But the vulnerability of what Brian just did. Hey, listen, I haven't worked all this out yet. I'm not even sure I know how to have this conversation correctly, but if you'd entertain it, would you be open to entertain the conversation so we can walk through this? But that's just vulnerability. Absolutely. Vulnerability, according to Patrick Lencioni, and my belief as well, which is vulnerability equals trust. If you're willing to be vulnerable, I can trust you. And so what he just did was showed you vulnerability in leadership. And if you follow that guidance, which is like, I don't know that I have all the answers. I don't know that I'm perfect. But if you'll work with me, right, if you'd be willing to have this conversation, I'd love to have this conversation because I think it could be helpful for you. Yeah. And then that leads into, when you're vulnerable, watch what happens, man. I'm telling you, right, somebody will just drop that guard and they'll be like, the reason why is, and they'll explain it. And then you guys now you're on the same team and you're working through this thing together. And you'll be surprised because that conversation now leads into someone actually being part of your tribe and actually being part of the vision and the mission, because that person ultimately now is bought in. And you guys are on the same team, and it's amazing what it can do. Yeah.
We've kind of touched on this already, but I think as leaders, we've got to get over ourselves and stop being afraid of being wrong.
That's right.
Like, so what? We get it wrong. We're just people, just like everybody else. Everybody gets it wrong. Your world's not going to fall apart because you get it wrong. And it's what Eric said. Like, he gets it right most of the time, but there's sometimes he doesn't get it all right. No one gets it all right, and it's okay. Like, it doesn't define you because you mess up. You're not a failure because you failed. You just failed, right? That doesn't define you as a leader. What defines you as a leader is what you do consistently all the time, over time. And if you're doing it right most of the time, then that's what is going to be the image of you in the eyes of your people, not the one time that you just got it wrong. Now, they may throw it up to you and make fun of you. That's all good. You got to laugh it off. You're like, yeah, I really screwed the pooch on that one, you know? And that's okay. And just make a joke at it and move on. Like, there's no reason to get all hung up on being afraid of failure, because it's going to happen. You can't avoid it. And if you take any kind of risk in life, you are going to bust. You're going to fall on your face. That's just normal. And if you want to be a leader, you got to learn to love that. You got to learn to know that that's just a moment that you get to get back up and try it again the next time. And you take it as an opportunity of just overcoming and just getting through it and becoming better the next time.
You know, it always makes me laugh when they're like, I have to be right. well, then you're going to have a challenge in leadership.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have many relationships either.
Well, and the bottom line is, like, you, first of all, if you struggle with being wrong in front of the people, you're going to struggle with people being wrong with you.
That's right.
Right? It's an indicator of a blind spot. Like, if you're afraid to fail in front of other people, you're going to hold people to their failures the wrong way, because you won't give yourself permission to be human in front of people. Therefore, it's definitely, if you won't give yourself permission, it's definitely hard to give permission to others to be human, because you're counting on them to not fail, right? We all want the grace of failure, but we want to try to hide our failure. But what belonging, that sense of, you heard us throw around that term tribe a lot, right? The point of being together is the fact that this is our humanity, and you have to give people permission to have their own shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, they got to have, like, you're going to hire people that's going to come in with some stuff. And you have to give them permission to be able to work through their issues. And you work, why? Because you are occupying the same space at the same time, and that's just our humanity. So being able to be real and have a general sense of acceptance allows you to be very clear about jobs and roles and responsibilities, as opposed to having to uphold some sort of standard that can't exist.
But here's a challenge, I think, and I just thought about this. You know, as doctors, you're not supposed to be wrong.
Right.
So think about this, doctors. You're not allowed to be wrong clinically, are you? So that's kind of makes it
That's right.
really difficult.
That's right.
Because now you have one side says you're not allowed to be wrong, and now we're saying, hey, you got to be okay with being wrong. And so that's really two almost different identities, isn't it? So doctors, think about it. That's a challenge. Like, that just hit me when we were sitting here. I was like, man, that's a heck of a challenge. Like, I'm supposed to be perfect all the time clinically, but I'm also be able to mess up from a leadership standpoint. Man, that's really tough to do, because I got to kind of weigh this out. That's a tough position to be in, and I give you grace on that, because that's actually difficult. And it's funny thing, and that's why it's difficult, because you have to, as a leader, check your ego at the door sometimes, because my team will give me crap for being wrong, because I'm not always right. And that's what I was saying. If you're one of those people who are like, oh, I'm always right, check your ego, man. Check it. Because no one's right all the time. And if that's what you're hanging your hat on, I'm telling you right now, this world's going to beat your butt, because it's crazy. And people will never want to come alongside you anyhow. Nobody wants to come alongside somebody who's an egomaniac. So you've got to be willing to fail. You got to be willing to laugh at it. You got to be able to work together. You have to be able to show vulnerabilities. But I will say that it's a challenge for doctors, because you're not supposed to fail clinically, but you're allowed to fail from a leadership standpoint, and that is difficult.
That's right. And think about where it begins. There's a reason why you're held to that standard. Think about how difficult and grueling your clinicals were when you went through school. Repetition, you remember the first time you prepped a tooth? How'd that go? You know what I mean? So repetition and immersion of going through this process as well will hone in your ability to be able to lead with better precision. But what leadership with better precision looks like actually gives space for humanity, because you start realizing it's influencing, driving the values of a dream. It's not about me showing up and having to perform and be perfect. It's a group of human beings coming together to pull something off together that's special. Because we won't always get it right, but to not confuse those standards. Like, put through the same effort. Like, and you guys do this when you graduate dental school, and guess what? You guys are the elite. You want to know why? Because you put yourselves in rooms like this. It's because you don't miss opportunity. And again, I keep going back to this because I love your Leadership Academy. Like, I love that, because there is not enough that exists in the industry for not just the doctor, but for the team to be able to be developed. So it's looking at, if you're investing to be great clinically, you're here because you're investing to grow in your leadership. You're not here because you're perfect at it. The Leadership Academy exists so that your team, so that you have ongoing repetition and immersion of these moments, so that you can become more precise at them. And when we miss the opportunity to invest in the things that make it right and to make it better, to bring precision to it, that's when we start finding those issues. And when we make mistakes and we're afraid of making mistakes, then we don't want to give ourselves permission to make mistakes, and then we set ourselves up for failure, because if nothing else, it's imposter syndrome and we feel like a fraud. But people just don't trust. People just won't trust unless we're allowed to be vulnerable together.
I think it's why it's so important, especially for doctors, to see yourselves as more than doctors and see yourselves as leaders. Like we talk a lot about owning the idea that I am the leader, because none of our lives are one-dimensional. All of our lives are multidimensional. And even though it is a great challenge, and it is a real challenge, and you should give yourself grace, it can never become an excuse, because you've got to manage the relational side and the leadership side of your life and your team and your business, and that needs equal weighted attention as your clinical. You get a little bit more grace on the relational side because it's dealing with people. The clinical stuff, you know you can't mess up, but that stuff, you're going to have more mess ups because it's just a little messier, and it's a different type of process and a different type of dimension to your life. But give it the effort. Just give it the effort to be great, and then when it doesn't go great, be okay with it, get back up, and be great tomorrow. Because, you know, it is what it is. You can't change the past. All you can do is do better the next day, right? You can only move forward. 2 more questions. All right, here we go. Second to last one. How can we structure meetings to have more impact? How can we structure meetings to have more impact? Go ahead, Eric.
Okay.
Long question.
Yes.
I mean, that's a loaded question, because what impact are you talking about specifically? I mean, that's what I'd want to know.
Let's use morning huddle as an example. How can a morning huddle be? Anybody need help
hop
on
in
morning
with that?
huddle? Let me raise it. See your
Is
hand.
that okay?
Please.
Anybody need help on morning huddle? Raise your hand. Be bold. Be bold. Be bold.
Yeah,
Okay.
hey, raise your hand if you love your morning huddle.
Sweet. Got some great morning huddles.
All right, there we go. Now, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if you hate it, but we actually
already
cut
did.
this
They
like
already
in our
did.
speed.
They were honest and vulnerable. I love it. They're being leaders. Yeah.
This is a great opportunity to make it about people, right? There's a doctor in here that does this as good as I've ever seen it, right? And we go in and out of patterns, but there's a doctor in here that does it the best that we've ever seen. But first, I'll say this: how is your morning huddle? This is a good example using that meeting. How is your morning huddle run? What is it that you guys are discussing? So when you gather in the morning, are you going through the tactical side of what needs to be covered, kind of walking through the waypoints of the day, and then while we've got you, let's talk about the problems we need to resolve. Okay, break. Right? And when we start that way, that's not an impactful way, and nobody is really going to enjoy that. Bring in the human element of it. Bring in the people of it. All right, so Dr. Jason Ganong, incredible. Here's how they have handled their morning huddle, all right? So they go through and they discuss the patients at a personal level. And they look for the personal notes and the stories for those that are existing patients. They check birthdays. If the birthday is within a month, somebody's running over to the grocery store that's across the street or whatever the case, just to get a little something. And when people start having an additional purpose beyond just the tactical things that are happening, but they can be involved at a human level in what's going on, that is impact. When you connect what you're doing not to the procedure that you have to perform, but to the life change of the individual that's trusting you to do so, right? So it's the people element. It's how much of the human side of this and how much at a human level can your team be involved, and fight to make it fun, fight to make it enjoyable, and celebrate the wins. Start every opportunity in celebrating wins.
That's good. Thoughts?
Go ahead.
I've seen this done, not the morning huddle, but a different style of meeting. And we didn't get to talk about it in our talk because we had to cut some things. But Rivertown Dental, they've been a client of ours and Towers for a while, and we love them dearly. They do something once a month. They shut down 4 locations once a month to do nothing but talk about leadership and add value to their team.
For an entire day.
For an entire day. Now think about the loss on that. 12 times a year, they're shutting down their practice. Every employee comes together, and all they're doing is pouring into their team. That kind of investment, that kind of leadership. And because they're making that kind of deposit 12 times a year, you're seeing the benefits of that lived out in the day-to-day operations. So sometimes you got to create meetings inside of your organization structurally over time that actually do something different than what you normally do in your routine, that will actually go far and make a big difference. And I think they would all say that it is a game changer. It's what helps drive their culture. It's what makes them great. I mean, they just launched a de novo that's blowing up because they're just incredible people doing incredible things, and they care about their people, and they invest in their people, and they pour into them, and they take a financial hit in order to do that. They don't see it as a loss. They see it as an investment. Because they know they're building leaders and they're building people inside their organization. And it is a great model to follow. And if you guys know him or don't know him, get to know that team, the Most Things and Dr. Cochran, let them tell you about it. Just let them unload what they do. It's pretty special.
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
What you think? Meetings.
I think that you guys covered it well. I think that what happens with meetings is we get into the mundane where we start to go, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I've watched the meetings where people say wins, because I was taught that too. Just celebrate wins. And I tried that for a while, and I just felt like people were like, so what are your wins? And it always frustrates me when I get to someone's win and they would just be like,
yep,
watch football. And I was like, this isn't the point of the meeting. So I just think meetings are about energy. I think everything we do is about energy. And I think it's the energy we bring to it. What the hell's the point of having a meeting if it's going to be pointless? And if you just get together and you're just going through this routine where it's just like we're getting together and we're just kind of, I just don't see the point in the meeting. It doesn't make sense.
Don't meet to meet.
Don't meet to meet. If you're getting together, check the energy, check the level. If your meetings are kind of just this mundane, then ultimately, leadership is your fault. That's just the truth. It's leadership's fault. If you're walking in your morning meeting, by the way, if you look disheveled and tired and you look like you just barely got there and you're sliding at the end and you're just passing it off to somebody else and the meeting is just dreary to get through, it's your fault. That meeting ultimately is the temperature to set the day. It is literally how you're setting the day. So if you walk in that room and it's just this boring, horrible meeting that you're barely getting through, I'm telling you, that day is set up for apps. You can say whatever you want about that day. Right. Nobody is running to work. No one's fired up. No one has a reason. It's just this meeting. So if you're going to have a meeting, meet, come together, bring your energy, jump up and down, celebrate people's wins, make people success, share success, talk about something that happened yesterday that was freaking awesome, raise people up, make it awesome. I don't even care if you talk about numbers. I would rather you meet and celebrate each other and high five and get excited about the day than even talk about a number, than have a meeting that nobody cares about, that nobody walks out of there with purpose. This patient's coming in and we look at the untreatment plan, we technically have $1,200.
That's right.
Blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh God. And then you sit in front of the patient, you're like, I don't even want to see this patient anyhow. I mean, good gosh, they're coming in. Okay, hold on, let me try to position this case. I don't even care. Is it lunchtime yet?
That's right.
So what's the point? What's the point? Because ultimately, even if I want to get that case across the line, why the hell am I trying to get this case across the line? Is it to make more money? Because I'm only going to get a small part of that anyhow. Why do I even want to close that case? Why do I want this patient to say yes? Why do I want them to move forward? You tell me, well, so we can hit our revenue goals. What the hell does that mean to me? I'm serious. You're going to tell somebody, so today we can hit our numbers? When I go home, that doesn't mean a damn thing to me. It means nothing to me. Why should we get this case across the line? How do we serve people? How do we take care of them? Why should we care? Why should we show up? When they walk in the door, how are we going to greet them, and why should we greet them that way? Let's have some fun with this. Let's celebrate people and celebrate their lives and make sure our patients feel great, and they'll say yes anyhow.
That's right.
I would rather spend more time getting together and creating an awesome, amazing energy that patients feel, because they will move forward when they feel that energy,
Absolutely.
when they feel like they're part of a family and they're part of a home. Some consultant somewhere gave you some damn morning huddle thing that you follow, and you're like, well, this is what they said to do, and you don't even know why you're doing it, and you've lost it. Somewhere along the way, you just lost it. I don't care about your sheet. Destroy it. Start over. Why are we doing a morning huddle? Start there. Yep. What's the point? Is it to hit our numbers? Is it to impact people? Is it to set the tone for the day? So go back and ask yourself a question. Why are we having the meeting? what would make this meeting successful? What's the best outcome of this meeting? Go find the reason to do it and restructure it. You want to have impact? Find out why you're meeting. Then restructure the meeting so that you understand if we're ultimately going to try to get people to move forward, to take action, what's the outcome of that? And here's the thing, revenue is a lagging indicator, not a leading indicator. It's a lagging indicator. It means it comes after we do the right things, not first. So if your morning meeting is about a lagging indicator, you frickin' missed it.
That's right.
It's a lagging indicator. So first start with the leading indicator. What would make this person want to move forward in this practice, at this time, on this day? Start there. That's how I would have an impact in a meeting. I'm just saying.
I want to be in your meeting.
I know.
And you got to get used to being a little bit awkward, right? Because you come into a quiet room and you come in with all the energy and everybody else has that energy. You got to be willing to kind of be that person, right?
That never
have to deal with how it feels for a second until they kind of catch up to your pace. But you got to set the pace for everybody else. Otherwise, everybody else will set the pace for you. You're responsible for your internal energy, and you got to bring that to bring outer change on the external environment that you're in. We talked about it yesterday. Change the atmosphere, just like Eric's saying, and be willing to feel a little bit awkward when people don't respond the way you think they should respond, or they don't respond with the same energy. They'll get there because they'll follow your lead. People want to be led. They will follow if you will just lead them to where you want them to go.
That's right.
So make sure your meetings are on purpose, for a purpose, and with great passion and excitement. Don't make it boring. Be fun. Be fun, people. Be fun, all right?
Be fun.
Last question. Ready? This is for you, Eric. Do you know the impact that Tower has in people's lives? You know where that comes from, Miss Joanne.
Who asked that question? Who asked that question?
She's not going to stand up.
She said, I'm not going to stand up.
You know, I think I would say this. You all have an impact on my life. It's the other way around. It's, you know, when we start thinking about the role, all of our role, by the way, it's not just Tower, it's your role, it's our role, it's Shad's role, it's Brian's role, it's all of our roles. My encouragement, I thank you for those words, I really do, because the company was started on this idea of impacting people. And so those words mean a lot to me, and it's huge. But I think that ultimately my job is to go out and try to impact as many people as possible. That's my job. My job is to ultimately steward people, meet people, find them where they are, and help them ultimately create a better version of themselves. But you all in turn have created a better version of me as well, because it's through your stories, it's through your successes that feeds me and feeds my soul and feeds our team's soul and gets us excited. I was talking to Lisa earlier, and she's like, gosh, people are talking about what she's doing in offices and our county. Everybody gets ultimately fed by your results, by what you guys do. And so that passion is only fed back right to us. You guys are making us better, we're making you better. But this is what leadership is. And I want everyone to hear me on this, is that everyone in this room has the opportunity every single day to impact people. That ultimately speaking, it's one of these things where the rest of the world is telling us all you need to do is go be an Instagram hero and whatever. And I'm trying to tell you is, if you want to have an amazing life, just go try to impact as many people as possible. Help people actually get what they want. This is the challenge, is you just go find out what people want and you help them get it. If you'll fight to help people get what they want, I guarantee you they will fight for you. If you just help other people, we're constantly being told to be self-interested. We're ultimately, it's all about us. It's egotistical. What I'm trying to tell you is that you don't need to worry about that. If you just go out and connect people with people and you help create value, Molly Fletcher and I went back on stage. As soon as I walked off, Molly Fletcher grabs me and she's like, oh my gosh, that was awesome. And she was like, you know, I live down the street. And I was like, no. And she was like, I'm like down the street. And I was like, give me your cell phone number, right? And I was like, let's go have lunch. And I was like, tell me more about what you do, Molly. And she's like, I've got this company, we do this and that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I could connect you with this person. And she's like, I could connect you with this person. And I was like, oh, that would be awesome. And before you know it, we're like just geeking out back there. on like how we can help each other. And she was like, oh my gosh, this would be awesome. And then we're literally having this collaboration of how we can serve each other. Now, one of the things she said to me is she was like, well, how can I feed you the ideal client? I was like, no, stop. How can I help you? How can I help you? And she was like, this is how you can help me. I was like, well, this is how I can help you. And we started talking. And what do you think comes from that? Like, that's where the big stuff happens, right? Because now it's like, let's get together, two people that just want to help each other, help people. Now, here's the cool thing. Molly just wants to help people. Molly's, I don't know what her financial situation, I'm sure she's fine, right? I'm doing okay these days, right? It's not about making more money. That's the key. Like, I don't want to meet with Molly because I'm thinking, hey, if I get with Molly, maybe she can put me in the right rooms where I can get signed up for something, right? If that's your goal, like, you missed it. You missed it. How many of you would like to have lunch with Molly Fletcher? Right? Right? Yeah, me too. But isn't that interesting that she would want to have lunch with me? Think about that for a second. Why does she want to have lunch with me? And I talked about it earlier. Because people doing great things want to spend time with people doing great things. Remember I said I would annoy the hell out of a lot of people, but I won't annoy Molly. That's right. When I hang out with Molly, she's going to be like, man, that's really cool. I got a lot from that. And then we're going to work together. And I guarantee you, Molly and I go do something really cool together. And so I'm going to call Molly up. We're going to have lunch. We're going to become best friends or whatever. And we're going to create something really cool. And that's what greatness happens. And so what I'm telling you is this, and hear this message from these 2 days. Hear this, because I keep trying to repeat this and show you. And there's an example of it. You don't need to worry about going to get rich. You don't need to worry about chasing down all this garbage. Just go serve people. It's that simple. It literally is that simple. If you quit worrying about yourself so much and you'll just go serve people, if you help people, if you take care of them, if you help them get what they want, help them reach your dreams. And I'm talking about if you're a team member, help other people reach their dreams. If you're a doctor, help your team reach their dreams. If you can help people go get things, and this is like a saying that's been kind of been overdone. It's got a little cliche. If you help people get what they want, they'll help you get what you want. It's gotten a little cliche, but don't miss it. Don't miss it. Look, I have the most beautiful life. And I believe that one of the reasons I have the most beautiful life is, one, I'm happy for what I have today. And two, because I worked my entire life on just impacting other people. Because I just try to help other people. That's what I try to do. That's all I want to do in life. And so if you'll just go do that, you will attract people that just want to help people, that are building and creating and growing and dreaming. And it's all of this whole circle of people. And believe it or not, there is a whole universe of people out there that want nothing more than that.
Absolutely.
And those people happen to be successful as hell. And so what ends up happening is, and I encourage every single one of you from the 2 days, take the, because in a little bit we're about to give away a Bronco.
That's happening.
In a little bit we're about to give away a Bronco. Come on. But that Bronco's a great example. I didn't have to do that. I did that literally. Just think about that. And I want you to hear me on this. This isn't about ego, so just hear me on this. I ultimately was like, I just want to incentivize people to go back to their office and work hard to become a great leader. And I'll just go take some money out of my back pocket and I'll just go buy a vehicle and give it to people just to go be a great leader because I believe in leadership. And so what happens is that I'm just trying to impact people. And so these 2 days are about impact. Your doctors brought you here because they believe in impact. Your doctors brought you here because they believe you can have a better life, because they believe in purpose, because they believe in something bigger. I'm telling you, what's happening in this room is not happening in this entire industry. It's a powerful thing. So Tower Leadership is just a tool. And Tiny Rhino is just a tool. And this stage is just a tool to ultimately help you reach the potential to impact as many people as possible. So what I would encourage you, and thank you for those kind words because they mean the world to me, because this is my dream of purpose. But it's not about me, and it's not about Tower. It's about you. If you guys, hopefully over these last few days, realize that we're passionate as heck about helping each and every one of you. So I will tell you flat out, it is absolutely our pleasure and our honor to serve you every day. And our team is dedicated to serving. I know your team is dedicated to serving. And we're thankful for what you all do for us. So thank you for what you do for us. Thank you for allowing. The Academy is like, I get to coach the Academy. Dr. Ganong said earlier, he's like, Eric, you can only have so many passion projects. Because I said, the Academy is my passion project. Like, I coach the Academy. Nobody else coaches the Academy. This is me. So when you come to the Academy, you get me for 4 sessions. And so I was like, and I just said, that's my passion project. Heck yeah, I'm going to run it. This is my passion. I guess I have unlimited passion projects. But I love you guys. I sincerely mean that. I love you guys. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing us to serve. Thank you for being in our house because you're guests in our house, and we're thankful for you. So thank you for, I'm going to give you guys a round of applause. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys. That's my belief.
Guys, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed it. Good stuff's coming next. I got a feeling.
All right, welcome back. You guys have now completed part 2 of the Leadership Roundtable. If you guys didn't see part 1, make sure you go back and rewatch part 1. It's important for you guys to learn these concepts. I mean, you have 3 of the industry's leaders when it comes to leadership talking on stage, answering questions that you probably have. So take the time to do it. But most importantly, I want to thank everyone for listening. It's been a heck of a year. I want to do a special shout out to Reese for putting on this amazing production over the years. We're going to continue to get better. If you guys ever have questions or if you think of series we should do, we're going to probably break things out into series moving forward. So I know one of the things that Eric and I are always looking at is, all right, so what do we need to talk about? Like, what are the most important things that we want to get accomplished when we do these? Because we want to provide value to you guys. So one of the things we want to do is probably do some seasons, some series, those type of things. So if you guys have anything in mind, like I always say, send a message in. Send a message to me. Send it to info@towerleadership.com. Send it to Matthew@towerleadership.com. Comment on social media, those type of things. Let us know. Interact with us. That's how we can make sure we're giving you guys exactly what you want. But it's the end of the year, so I hope you guys have a happy New Year's. Have a happy start to the great new 2024 and crush the new year. Like, subscribe, share as always, and we'll see you in 2024.